In this video, I'm going to be talking all about iOS accessibility and how I use the tools that come with them. And I am using it both on this device here and this device here. So let's talk about that today. And how I use them and how they might be helpful for you. Hi, I'm Velanche. I am a DJ and founder of local DJ collective Soul Dust Productions. I am also an aspiring music maker, and I am also a tech geek, among other things. I have done a previous video on Apple accessibility, in particular macOS accessibility on Big Sur. And I have the video that is somewhere above me and also down in the description if you want to be able to watch that video. Apple has dropped iOS 15, and it is, of course, the latest mobile operating system for both iPhone and the iPad. And so it's got some new features in there since, and some of the features that are in there I will talk to you about today. And I'm talking about it from the perspective of how I'm using it. Obviously, there's way more accessibility tools in iOS and macOS than I'm ever going to talk about. I'm just going to talk about the ones that I use that might be useful to you, whether you have visual issues or hearing issues or age-related things that happen that you want to be able to probably take advantage of them. So let's go ahead and talk about iOS accessibility. So the first thing I want to talk about is dark mode. And dark mode has been a great feature that has been added to macOS, and now it is added into iOS. It's actually been there for a little while, but more and more apps have been taking advantage of them. More of them are also having their apps so that it changes depending on what you choose in the system. All in all, it's made reading and looking at the screen really that much more easier on my eyes without a great deal of fatigue. And I really have a more pleasant experience using the many apps that take advantage of dark mode. Everything from the Microsoft products to Reader, delightfully even Google and its web page is allowed for dark mode that can be switched on, which is great and pretty phenomenal. And YouTube has had that for a while too. Facebook is a little bit of a mixed bag, whereas the phone has the dark mode. The iPad version for some reason does not. Same thing with Instagram. Of course, Instagram is only iPhone only, but it does have dark mode there too. So all in all, it's been great to be able to not have to worry about the brightness of the screen and me squinting down to be able to read tiny fonts. Having dark mode kind of compensates for that. Accessibility shortcuts. So within iOS, there is a way where you can be able to make it so that you have quick access to commonly used accessibility features, and from there you can be able to access it in a couple of ways. And the way you can be able to access it is either through the control center feature that you swipe from the upper right on your iOS device, or if you triple click on the home button, and then if you want to test it, you can go ahead and triple click on the power button and get the screen, and you can be able to see your options, and you can touch what you want to be able to touch. In iOS, you have a chance to being able to invert your entire screen. And there are two types of inverts. One is called classic invert, in which once you turn on this function, it's going to invert the entire screen in the opposite color that it would be if it wasn't turned on. Essentially, your lights are going to become dark and your darks are going to become light. But one of the issues that can happen when you use that feature is that it can also make it so that the graphics that you have also does invert, but it doesn't come out properly. It looks like you're, for the most part, seeing x-rays. So there's this other option, the one that is called Smart Invert. And what Smart Invert does is that it does the same thing as Classic Invert, only it tries to figure out if images that you have are there. And if they are, then it's going to try its best to be able to make it so that it leaves the image alone, so that if you have, say, like a color image, regular photograph, it's going to try to ignore it. Now, most of the time, it does a fine job of doing that. Sometimes it doesn't, but most of the time it does. I noticed that it's been getting better with each iOS release. Sometimes I find that depending on how a website, for instance, is built, it might not end up inverting, say, a white background in the way that you want it. It might keep the white background even if you invoke Smart Invert. And that may be the time that you may have to use the classic invert in order to get around it. I use it a lot in the Books apps, particularly with PDFs, as well as some of the books that I purchase. And also I use it at times on the Kindle app and other places too, other apps that have a need for me to be able to do that invert. It's just great when it works. Speed Screen is another feature that I really like. Now, I don't personally use it that much, but I do use it from time to time. And Speed Screen is one of those features that is within accessibility that you have to turn on at first. But once you end up turning it on, what you do with your iOS device, and it might take a little bit of practice at first to be able to get it, but you would have, say, an article from a website, for instance, and you have it on screen, and what you have to do is from the top, it's a 2-finger swipe from the top of your screen. So it's a top middle in particular. Like I said, it might take a little bit of practice. Once you do that, then there's going to be a player that's going to go on the screen, and that player will allow you to first be able to speed up or slow down the speech, but the speech would usually going to start almost immediately after it shows up on screen. Once it starts to speak, then it will hide itself, but you'll still be able to see a little bit of the arrow that kind of collapses until you want to be able to get that up on the screen again. You just tap on it, and once you do, you can be able to either edit the speech screen mode or you can be able to stop it. Also, it can be a little bit unpredictable. Usually it can do a good job on a web page, but if you have on Books or some other app where it has like multiple pages, sometimes it works. The zoom feature is also pretty cool on iOS, especially on the iPad. I use the iPad Pro, and with it I use the Magic Keyboard. And my setup is a little similar to how it is on macOS, in that I can be able to press down a key, and then with the trackpad I can zoom in and zoom out full screen to zoom in and get a bit more precise as to where I want to be able to see. And on my iPad with the Magic Trackpad, it's just a dream. It is so great to be able to do that, to be able to zoom in and zoom out and not have anything getting in the way. Another feature is Safari. Now, I talked about Safari on the video that I done on macOS, and Safari, it looks a little different in iOS 15, but not so different that you can't use it. One of my favorite features in Safari is Reader View. And Reader View, what it does is it allows for a web page to get stripped out of all of its content as far as graphics and just clutter that otherwise would take up the entire screen, and all you get is maybe the headline graphic, which is really good. It's really cool. You avoid lots of things like pop-ups, and it's just a focused screen. It's very focused, so all you're seeing is the text and, like I said, just certain graphics, and that's it. That makes for a really enjoyable reading experience, and I would say that even if you are not visually impaired, you might want to give Reader View a try. It's a really great tool just to be able to make it so that you can focus on the read and have it in an uninstructed way. One of the features that I really am enjoying in iOS 15 is called Per App Settings. Before iOS 15, if you want to be able to set the accessibility settings, it's system-wide. It affects most apps that will be able to accept accessibility settings. That's usually pretty cool, but sometimes it can also be a little bit messy, especially with fonts that get a little bit large and also may interfere with the interface. So sometimes tabs especially can also get truncated, and it could really not just aesthetically unpleasant, but also functionally unpleasant. New within accessibility, you just go down to the bottom, you can be able to find per app settings. Once you go there, you can be able to add whatever app you want to be able to customize to your liking. And you can be able to see that I have several apps that I have added in, and for each app I mostly made it so that the font is either larger or smaller, and you have several different kinds of sizes where you can be able to go from large to small, and different settings in between, so you can make it as large or as small as you want. And this has been really helpful. I had to be able to especially kind of tame the Files app, which the fonts had gotten huge, and as a consequence it ended up making it so that it was a little bit challenging to be able to work with the app at times, because letters tend to get truncated. But I've gotten it to a level where I can be able to work with it more and be able to see everything, and that is something you might want to spend some time with, especially if you had iOS and you have the accessibility feature turned on system-wide, and you can be able to identify readily, what apps you want to be able to mess around with, and you want to be able to tweak so that you can be able to customize the look and feel of each app to your liking. So those are the accessibility features that I use. There's one other that I'm kind of curious about personally, and that is a new one called Conversation Boost. Conversation Boost is a feature that is available only if you have the AirPod Pro. But what Conversation Boost is supposed to do is it's supposed to be able to make it so that you can be able to have your AirPods on, and you can be able to hold a conversation with someone in front of you, and background noise is supposed to be as transparent as you want it to be, so you can have less of the background noise as you want. I tried it once and I'm not quite sure, frankly, if I've done it right. The big thing that happened to me is that because my hearing loss is a little bit more significant, it's a little bit hard for me to be able to hear a conversation. So I'm going to try a couple more times to see maybe if I can tweak something. Folks, so that is the video. Couple of questions for you. Any of these accessibility features appeal to you? Do you use any of the accessibility features that come with iOS? And what are your thoughts on them? Share them down below in the comments. If this video is informative to you, please click the like button. Thanks for joining me, and I'll be back with you with a new video sooner, better than later. Alright, thanks, and catch you later. Peace.